Have you ever wondered what the fastest car in the world was? Before Ferrari, Lamborghini, or Porsche existed as we know them today. Can you imagine driving a machine capable of more than 140 miles per hour in an era with no seatbelts, no traction control, and a world just emerging from a war? Because what you're about to see isn't just a simple list of classic cars. It's a true journey through the 1940s, where speed, handcrafted engineering, and history were woven into every curve. Today I bring you the 10 fastest cars of the 1940s, a selection that will leave you speechless, from massive American machines with rumbling V8 engines to European handmade jewels that looked like spaceships in the middle of the post-war era. Are you ready? Buckle up, because we're about to floor it, straight into the past. 1940 Ford Deluxe Coupe. This car wasn't built for racing or to break speed records, but it hid inside something that made it special. Very special. At a time when most vehicles barely exceeded 60 miles per hour, this elegant and sturdy Ford reached an impressive 84 miles per hour, and it did it with style. Its heart was a 3.6-liter flathead V8, an iconic design that defined the standard of accessible performance for the American middle class. This engine had something magical. It was simple, reliable, and powerful within its limits. It wasn't a refined European V12 or an exotic experiment. It was pure American essence, built to last, built to thrill. Back then, the deep growl of the flathead was music to the ears of driving enthusiasts. And today, it still brings nostalgia to those who remember it. The design of the Deluxe Coupe was a masterpiece of elegance and functionality. Its flowing bodywork, sweeping fenders, chrome detailing, everything breathed the transition between the Art Deco style of the 1930s and the functional sobriety of the wartime years. It wasn't a flashy car, but it definitely turned heads. It was the kind of car a young man dreamed of owning, and a father was proud to drive. In fact, it was very common to see this model at weddings, graduation dances, and even in Hollywood films. A curious detail. During World War II, many of these Ford Deluxe models were requisitioned and adapted by the U.S. military for civil and logistical duties, proving their durability far beyond paved roads. Its chassis endured dirt paths, extreme climates, and still maintained its elegant character. Today, a well-restored 1940 Ford Deluxe Coupe can reach values between $30,000 and $55,000 in the collector's market. 1948 Hudson Commodore 8. There are cars that don't just represent an era, they define it. The Commodore wasn't just a premium vehicle. It was a statement about what luxury, power, and presence meant at the close of a decade marked by global reconstruction. If 1940s automobiles could speak, this Hudson would shout with elegance, "Here I am! Look at me, hear me, feel me." Under its long and majestic hood slept an inline-8 engine with 4.2 liters of displacement, capable of reaching 90 miles per hour. An impressive figure for such a robust machine. But the Commodore didn't aim to impress with brute speed. No. Its real weapon was the perfect balance between smoothness and strength. It moved like an ocean liner gliding across the sea. Powerful, silent, confident. This model was the flagship of the Hudson Motor Car Company, and its interior was designed to wrap the driver and passengers in absolute comfort. Thick velvet upholstery, finely crafted analog gauges, varnished wood panels. It was practically a rolling lounge, and its exterior design, with flowing lines, a low roof, and an enveloping body, was ahead of its time, foreshadowing the step-down trend that Hudson itself would perfect in the years to come. What's most fascinating is how the Commodore 8 also became a symbol of social transformation. In 1948, the United States was experiencing its post-war economic boom, and owning a Hudson meant status, sophistication, and good taste. Many executives, politicians, and even artists preferred it over more ostentatious brands because the Commodore combined presence with restraint, luxury with discreet elegance. A little-known fact, this very model became a contender in NASCAR just a few years later. Even though it looked like a refined touring car, its low chassis and reliable engine made it feared on the track. It was one of the first examples where luxury and performance shook hands in a single machine. Today, a well-restored Hudson Commodore 8 can be valued between $45,000 and $80,000, depending on its condition and originality. 1941, Lincoln Continental. It doesn't matter if you see it parked in front of an old luxury hotel or gliding slowly down a cobblestone avenue from the 1940s. This car never goes unnoticed. It is more than a vehicle. It's a rolling work of art, an elegant whisper from an America that, even on the eve of war, still dreamed of glamour. The heart beating beneath its long, refined hood was a 4.8-liter V12, one of the first 12-cylinder engines ever installed in an American production car. And it wasn't just about power, though its 93 miles per hour top speed was quite impressive for the time. It was about prestige, about exclusivity. Because in the 1940s, owning a Lincoln V12 didn't just mean you could afford an expensive car, it meant you belonged to an elite. This model was originally designed by Edsel Ford, son of Henry Ford, as a personal car. He wanted something different, something European-inspired, something that blended American spirit with old-world sophistication. Every line of its bodywork breathed distinction. The long hood, the upright grille, the partially covered rear wheels, and above all, its iconic rear-mounted spare wheel, the famous Continental kit, which would become a design icon for decades. Inside, fine leather, circular gauges with metallic finishes, and absolute silence when the doors closed. But here's a fact very few people know. In 1941, production of the Lincoln Continental V12 was abruptly halted when the United States entered World War II. The factory was converted to wartime manufacturing, and only a lucky few managed to get one before the model temporarily disappeared. That, of course, made its symbolic value grow even more over time. Today, if you dare to search for one in good condition, you might need between $75,000 and $150,000 to bring it home. But now, I want to ask you, sitting on the other side of the screen, with that nostalgic look and that spark in your eyes, did you ever know someone who owned a Lincoln like this? Did you or your family ever see one on the streets? Tell us your story in the comments below. 1940 Oldsmobile Series 90. Picture this. The year is 1940. You're walking down a dusty main street in some American city when suddenly you hear the deep, steady purr of an engine that doesn't need to show off. You turn your head, and there it is. Long, imposing, with flowing lines and a presence that seems to freeze time, the Series 90. This wasn't just a car, it was a statement. The future had arrived, and it was automatic. What made this model truly revolutionary wasn't just its elegant design or its generous proportions. It was the fact that it came equipped with a mechanical innovation that would change automotive history forever. The hydromatic automatic transmission. Yes, this was one of the first luxury cars in the world to do away with the clutch pedal, and in the 1940s, that was practically science fiction. Under the hood rested a 5-liter V8 engine, an 8-cylinder beast that delivered not only power, but smoothness, allowing it to reach a top speed of 96 miles per hour. Absolutely remarkable for a car of that size and weight. But what impressed most was how it achieved that speed, without jolts, without strain, as if it were gliding over the pavement. Here's a fascinating fact. The Hydromatic was developed in collaboration with Cadillac, but Oldsmobile was the first to introduce it in production. And it worked so well that just a few years later, the U.S. Army adapted versions of this transmission for military vehicles during World War II. Yes, this luxury system ended up proving useful even in war tanks. Today, a Oldsmobile Series 90 in good condition can cost between $60,000 and $100,000. 1948 Chrysler Town and Country. If someone told you that one of the most desirable cars of the late 1940s was made partially out of wood, would you believe it? Because that's exactly what this car was. A machine that defied every expectation. It was as if a luxury cabin had been transformed into a speed-capable automobile, and they pulled it off brilliantly. Despite its woody appearance, this car reached a top speed of 100 miles per hour, something absolutely unexpected for a vehicle with such a peculiar style. The Town and Country wasn't just another car, it was a symbol of post-war America, optimistic, elegant, functional, yet still infused with the artistic touch that had been lost during the years of conflict. Chrysler advertised it as a luxury station wagon, But in reality, it was far more than that. It was a whim on wheels, a fusion of traditional craftsmanship and modern engineering. The heart of this giant was a 5.3-liter straight-eight engine that provided not only brute strength, but also a smoothness worthy of a floating salon. It was built for long road trips, but also designed to impress upon arrival. It featured details that would be unthinkable today. Genuine handcrafted wooden side panels carved with near sculptural precision, combined with refined steel bodywork. No two were exactly alike, because every town and country was, in part, a piece of carpentry. There's a little-known story behind this model. When Chrysler began producing the town and country in larger numbers after the war, there was a shortage of suitable wood. As a result, the company brought in specialized carpenters from around the country to work exclusively on these cars, some of whom were former boat builders. And you can tell. When you look at a town and country, it feels like you're looking at something made with soul, not just tools. Today, a 1948 Chrysler Town and Country can be valued between $70,000 and $120,000. But if it still retains its original wood, well cared for, with no invasive restorations, that price can double at auction. The reason? Cars like this simply aren't made anymore, and probably never will be again. 1940 to 1948, Tatra T87. When we talk about cars that looked as if they arrived from the future, yet were created during the darkest days of the 20th century, it's impossible not to stop and marvel at the enigmatic and fascinating Tatra T87, produced in Czechoslovakia between 1940 and 1948. Because yes, while the world was sinking into World War II, one of the most advanced, dangerous, and admired automobiles of its time was being born in the heart of Europe. The Tatra T87 was a creature unlike anything else. With its teardrop shape, its razor-sharp bodywork, and that unusual vertical stabilizer at the rear, it looked more like a wingless aircraft than a car. Its aerodynamic design was not only futuristic, it was effective. It reached a top speed of 100 miles per hour, outperforming many larger displacement cars. And it did so thanks to a 3-liter, air-cooled V8 engine mounted at the rear, almost unthinkable outside the worlds of Porsche or Volkswagen at the time. Designed by the legendary Hans Ledwinka, the T87 didn't just break the rules, it shattered them. Its drag coefficient was just 0.36, a figure many modern cars still envy. And here's what makes it even more fascinating. This car, with its radical design and cutting-edge technology, wasn't a concept or a luxury fantasy. It was in production, circulating on the roads during the most brutal conflict in modern history. In fact, it was so efficient, so fast, and so stable at high speed that several high-ranking Nazi officers adopted it as their official car. But here's the dark twist. The T87 earned the nickname the car that killed Nazi officers. Its power, combined with unpredictable handling in tight corners due to its rear-heavy weight distribution, made it treacherous for inexperienced drivers at high speed. Many fatal accidents involved German officers behind the wheel, leading to internal restrictions on its use within the regime. Today, finding a Tatra T87 in good condition is almost a miracle. Prices typically range from $100,000 to $180,000. And now that you've discovered it, I have to ask, had you ever heard of the Tatra T87 before this video? And if you had, did you know it was this advanced, this dangerous, and this coveted even by the most powerful men of its time? Let us know in the comments. A 1948 Jaguar XK120. This was, quite literally, the fastest production car in the world when it hit the market. Its name is no coincidence. XK for its experimental engine, and 120 for the miles per hour it could reach. An absolutely scandalous figure for a road car of its era. No other vehicle available to the public could touch those numbers. And the XK120 achieved them with grace, style, and an engine that sounded more like a refined orchestra than something built in a factory. Under its long hood lived a 3.4-liter inline-six with twin overhead camshafts, something completely innovative for a mass-production car. It produced around 160 horsepower, but beyond the numbers, what really captivated people was how it delivered that power. The engine revved with such smoothness, such polished progression, that many compared it to aircraft engines. and they weren't entirely wrong. The XK120 was initially presented as a prototype at the 1948 London Motor Show. The impact of its design, fluid, aerodynamic, almost sensual, was so overwhelming that Jaguar was forced to put it into production. What began as a limited hand-built run in aluminum became one of the most coveted automotive creations in history. And, of course, the car wasn't just fast on paper. In 1949, a standard XK120 exceeded 132 miles per hour on a closed track. Later, in endurance testing, one of these models covered more than 100 miles per hour at a constant average speed for 24 hours. It was a true champion on the racetrack, without losing a single gram of elegance. Today, a Jaguar XK120 can cost anywhere from $120,000 to $250,000, depending on its condition, originality, and version. The early aluminum-bodied models are especially sought after. 1942, Alfa Romeo 6C 2500 SS. In the middle of a continent at war, surrounded by ruins, uncertainty, and silence, one Italian Marquo refused to surrender to the darkness. While the skies over Europe filled with aircraft, Alfa Romeo put its hands on aluminum and dreams, creating the 1942 6C 2500 SS, arguably the last breath of pure elegance before the conflict reached its darkest point. And what a breath it was. One that roared with class and reached 124 miles per hour, something simply unthinkable in the midst of war. This was no ordinary car. It was a rolling sculpture. Each unit was built entirely by hand, with bodies crafted by Italy's greatest master coach builders, such as Touring and Pininfarina, which meant that every 6C was unique. No two were alike. Nothing else even came close. Owning one was like commissioning a tailor-made suit in an era when everyone else wore uniforms. Its 2.5-liter inline-six, equipped with dual or triple carburetors depending on the configuration, delivered performance that bordered on the poetic. It wasn't just power, it was refinement. Its sound wasn't the raw growl of an American VZ8, but a tuned melodic voice that invited you to accelerate just to hear it rise and fall with millimetric elegance. Here's a fascinating, almost cinematic of detail. During the war, several 6C2500 SS units were hidden away by Italian collectors to prevent them from falling into the hands of the German army. They were literally concealed in barns, tunnels, and even behind false walls. When the war was over, they re-emerged into the light, as if waking from a nightmare with the mission of reminding the world what Italy had once been capable of creating. Today, if you're lucky and wealthy enough to find one, expect to pay between $300,000 and $700,000 depending on the coach builder, condition, and provenance. 1948 Talbot-Lago T26 Grand Sport. Some cars were not designed for the masses, nor even for ordinary roads. They were conceived for princes, artists, racers, and aristocrats. The T26 is exactly that. An automobile built for an elite. Not just an economic elite, but an elite of taste, vision, and passion for engineering turned into art. Born in France during the first breaths of post-war recovery, the T26 Grand Sport looked more like a museum jewel than a functional car. But, make no mistake, it performed. Beneath its voluptuous lines and theatrical proportions beat a 4.5-liter inline-six, derived directly from the brand's competition machines. Depending on the configuration, its top speed ranged from 124 to 130 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest and most advanced vehicles of its time. But the Talbot wasn't satisfied with simply being fast. It had to do so with extreme elegance. Every unit was hand-built, and many of its bodies were created by legendary French coach builders like Fagoni and Falaschi, responsible for some of the most beautiful automotive designs the world has ever seen. Some enthusiasts argue that the T26 Grand Sport was the last truly Belle Epoque automobile before car design shifted toward function over art, a detail that elevates its legend even further. Only 26 Grand Sport units were produced between 1948 and the early 1950s. Each one different, each one unrepeatable, each one with a personal story, often filled with glamour, intrigue, and speed. And if you're wondering about its value today, let's just say this car doesn't show up on ordinary classified websites. You'll only see it at elite auctions like Pebble Beach or Villa d'Este. When it appears, it can easily surpass $1 million, and often goes far higher if it retains its original bodywork by the great French designers. 1948, Ferrari 166. Enter, close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself in Italy in 1948. The country was still shaking the dust of war from its shoulders, but in a small workshop in Modena, a newborn brand was about to change the history of the automobile forever. It wasn't a huge factory. There were no millions in funding. There was only a vision, a man with a dream named Enzo Ferrari, and a machine that would mark the beginning of a legend, the Ferrari 166 Inter. This wasn't just a car. It was the first road-going automobile ever produced by Ferrari, and yet, its essence was pure racing DNA. In fact, it came directly from the Ferrari 166mm that had already triumphed on the world's most demanding circuits. But the Inter was meant for something more intimate, more personal, to allow speed enthusiasts to experience Ferrari on open roads. Under its hood beat a true engineering gem, a 2-liter V12 engine designed by the brilliant Gioacchino Colombo. Despite its small size, this power plant could push the car to a top speed of up to 137 miles per hour, an absolutely extraordinary figure for its time, especially considering it was a street car. Owning a 166 Inter back then wasn't just owning a car, it meant joining a very select, almost sacred circle. Only 37 units were ever built, and many of them were commissioned by businessmen, nobles, and celebrities who understood that they were acquiring something far beyond a vehicle. They were purchasing living history at the moment of its birth. Today, an original Ferrari 166 Inter, well documented and properly preserved, is one of the holy grails of automotive collecting. Its value can easily exceed $2 million, and some examples have reached even higher figures at historic auctions. And there you have them, 10 legends on wheels that not only pushed the limits of speed in the 1940s, but also wrote the very first chapters of modern automotive history, each one with its own roar, its own style, its own story, and with a personality so strong that even now, more than 80 years later, they still leave anyone breathless as they pass by. Now, tell me something, without thinking too much. Which one of these cars would you put in your garage today if you could choose only one? Leave your answer down below. Don't keep it to yourself. This channel is a community of enthusiasts, and your opinion isn't just welcome, it's essential. And by the way, if you were left wanting more classic cars with breathtaking designs and curves that look sculpted by an artist, don't miss our video about the most beautiful American cars of the 1940s. It's full of models that weren't just fast, they were simply unforgettable. Hit play over there and get ready to fall in love. See you in that video.